thank you all for coming. A few years ago, we founded a thing called YCA to try to get everybody, like-minded people, into one spot where you could find people you could hang out with. And a big thing that people have in common with YCA is cruising with kids. So it's not easy. Sometimes it makes you question if you're doing it and why you're doing it, and should I be doing this? Is it the best thing for the kids? Is it everything I dreamed of it being? And I think we'll cover some of those things today probably. So we have Sarah and Will Curry from Hydrovane. They have 2 5-year-old twins. Talk to you a little bit about that. Unfortunately, our teenage speaker couldn't make it today, but then we have the other side too from Alex and Taylor Berg that we cruised with while Taylor was pregnant, and then through the whole process. And I think they can give you a good full round kind of thoughts. And then we're gonna do a 15-minute Q&A at the end. So Alex actually cruised as a kid, and Will did as well. So you can ask them personal questions about what it was like and what it was like to be away from friends in school and stuff like that too. So I want to pass the mic over. Thank you all for being here.
For coming out. Mommy's a little bit hungover this morning, so sorry if my words are not like flowing as smoothly as they normally do. Okay, we're here to talk about cruising with kids, and I was laughing because I had named this slide incorrectly. My title, when I looked at it this morning, it actually said Sunshine and Stains, which kind of also works, but I was like, it's supposed to say Strains. Yeah, so this is my husband Will, I'm Sarah, and we've been cruising for a while. We've been cruising for about a decade, and through the South Pacific, Pacific Mexico, California coast for many years, and Greece, and right now our boat is in the Canary Islands, and we're heading out crossing the Atlantic next month. So to introduce, not the kids first, but the boats first.
It's kind of interesting when you look at the progression of boats as you get older, the kids get older. The first 2 boats there, our first boat was a Beneteau First 405. That was pre-kids. That's the boat that we sailed to Australia on. Kai Quest, our second boat, we sailed down to Mexico. Kids happened while we had that boat. It was a great boat for us, but we also worked from the boat, and we got a lot of energy to burn off. So we quickly realized that we needed more space, and the boys said that they wanted a trampoline, so we bought a catamaran, a very expensive trampoline. It's a Leopard 46.
Aww.
Yeah, this was when they were 3 months old, 6 months old.
Yeah, so they are twins, so that was a whole other factor. But we were really, really determined to keep the cruising life going. And in fact, even when we were in the South Pacific and I was on like 3 forms of both birth control, because under no circumstances I'd want to get pregnant and ruin our cruise, I also said when we decided to have kids that I would only do it on a boat, because you honestly raise the coolest little kids, and all the other boat kids that we had met, we were just so inspired by. So we're really, really fortunate. We have Hugo and Kip, and they're also running around the boat show somewhere. You might see them. But everything changes. So projects. We've done a lot of boat projects in our life, and when you add kids into doing boat projects, it's a whole new level.
It's actually my worst nightmare. I'm not gonna lie. It's like, this was us in San Diego installing a water maker before we were heading south. And I just remember having the 2 boys there on their pillows propped up with their bottles, and we're running off of like 3 hours of sleep. And I looked at Sarah, I'm like, why are we doing this? This is ridiculous. But then we got down the Baja and it was amazing. But yeah, it's challenging.
Yeah, and we've kind of done a thing over our life, and some of you probably already have your cruising boats and you're doing it, but we have kind of bought our boats in places that we want to sail and tried to make it easy on ourselves, where we haven't bought fixer-uppers. We've bought boats that are pretty well outfitted. So we were in San Diego at the time, and I also knew that for the boys' first offshore passage, I did not want them to be walking. So we made the decision to sail down to Mexico when they were 6 months old in February, which is kind of off season for going down Baja, but you can do it anytime. So we had this amazing first passage with them, going down Baja when they were 6 months old. And people took pity on us. Like, I remember when we were looking for a place to eat in Turtle Bay, and there's like one restaurant in town, and it was closed, and we were just outside, both wearing a baby, and this little, abuela, this grandmother, she opened up the door and she said, no, come in, I will cook for you. And she cooked for us, and then she held the babies while we ate. So it was just like, it was just the cutest thing. And a pretty awesome achievement. So for us, it was all about the safe spaces in those younger years, and we came up with a few things.
One of them was creating the pit, we called it, which was basically our main salon table. Once we had the boys on board, never went up. It was always in this down position, and we created this little cage. But it's funny, as kids get older, the pit had to grow. So suddenly we added a section, and then we actually enclosed the outside of the cockpit too. It wasn't a full enclosure, but it was the Hypertex.
But it's crazy how quickly it happens. I mean, we were on passage going over to the mainland, and we came down below, and both the babies were like on the galley, like countertop. They were up here. So yeah, it stops working very, very quickly, and that's another one of the things. We didn't make modifications to the boat that we couldn't change and take down very quickly, because like one stage happens and then you're on to the next, and that never went up again the next season.
And you can definitely take it too far when it comes to trying to create these safe spaces, because they will always find a way to escape. That's the outdoor one I was talking about in the cockpit, which was nice.
And the caves. So we also just bought, off the shelf Amazon pack and plays, and that's where they slept, and they were perfect. One of them got the short end of the stick on the placement of the pack and play, but he was fired. So yeah, less adaptation is more, and we did end up selling that boat in Mexico in 2022, and we did not sell it to another sailing family. So we were kind of happy that the adaptations that we made could quickly be unmade for the couple who bought it.
Yeah, single-handing. I mean, basically, once the boys were on board, I was single-handing the boat. It was very hard for Sarah to come and assist with anything. So little things, like we had in-mast furling on the mainsail, and our prior boat did not have that. And I thought, we can't have in-mast furling, it's not a proper sail. But actually, it ended up being fantastic for us, because I could easily take in as much sail as I wanted. Sometimes simpler and easier trumps performance. And we kind of learned to slow down a little bit.
Now we can't keep them out of the cockpit. So our one main survival tip, to be honest, has been to outnumber them. So we were redlining with them as babies in Mexico. We're also working, we were cruising, doing the boat projects, chasing the twins, trying to keep them safe, and I said to Will, I said, you know what? This actually isn't as fun as we want it to be. And I had this. I had an idea, because when I was 20, I went and worked in France as an au pair, and I said, you know what? Let's find someone to come with us. I'm a private person. I like my personal space, so it was kind of one of those things where you have to say, okay, we're on a monohull, we're going to have another person living with us in our space for the next 8 months, but we did it, and we found this wonderful girl who came and joined us, and I don't think we've been without an au pair since, because it just completely changed our work life, our enjoyment of the boat life, and you know what? The kids are happier.
I mean, that's a big thing. You're on board. It's just like bringing crew on board. I always say that your personality is the most important. I don't actually care that much about your sailing skills. It's more, do you have a sense of humor? Can you deal with, when things are breaking? So having Jill with us has just been incredible, and she's actually doing the Atlantic crossing with us in 4 weeks' time. So we're super lucky.
Yeah, she's actually the fifth au pair that we've had, but yeah, she's joined us for 2 stints on the boat. Yeah, so moving to the catamaran, part of it was like a space factor, knowing that we were going to be sailing probably, you know, if we're even, could be a long time with a fifth person. So that has been really, really nice. And we were extremely lucky to find our dream boat in Greece. And we moved aboard in August 2022, so shortly after we sold our last boat. And double hull life is really great, actually, with a family. The conveniences help, and the previous owner had put on things that, you know, we've never had cruising before, like a washing machine, air conditioning. These things I don't want to say, you know, it was. Well, we feel very fortunate that we have them, and the space, but of course the cost is prohibitive. They love it. For boat school, we have started, so they're 5, so they would have gone into kindergarten last month if we were in Vancouver. And we found like a great online program. I have to admit as well, I did the first week with them, but because I'm working, I very quickly realized that the attention that I can give to homeschooling is not enough. So Jill has actually taken over that role, and she's doing the homeschooling. And for my future au pairs that we find, I will be, you know, targeting people who do have a background in education. I wish I could do it, but it's the time, and kids don't always listen so well to their mothers, and maybe we'll take it better from someone else. Cruising, I mean, let's be honest, it really, really is the best life, and we feel like all these times that we've just had, you know, on the beach with other kids. This was in Greece this summer where they found a dead octopus, but that was the science lesson for the day, and all the kids just spent, you know, hours looking at it, dissecting it, beating it on the rocks to tenderize it, and then we cooked it and we ate it, and it was disgusting, but it was a lesson. What's really, really changed is the communication. Being able to find the other cruising families now is just so easy. With Instagram, Facebook, you know, see people just seeing what, you know, boats are around you with kids. We're on quite a few really, really large WhatsApp groups with people in different regions that we've met as we've kind of passed through, and those are awesome for the kids and the adults as well.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to add, because I cruised when I was younger and I was a teenager, and one of the coolest thing about cruising is that kids don't have to hang out with kids their age. Your kids can hang out with kids they're 5, they're hanging out with 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds, and they all get along. They all have their own little things that they bring to the table. Whereas if you feel like in land life, you're kind of segregated into, if you're in grade 1, you're hanging out with grade 1-year-olds. So it's a whole different world that way, and it makes a big difference for their development over time.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people are doing it, right? We have signed up to cross the Atlantic with a rally this time, and we're doing it with the ARC Plus, and there's 37 other kids. So when we go back to our boat in the Canary Islands next week, we are going to be on a pontoon with 37 other kids doing our prep. And I just love that like normalizes what we're doing for them. Because at sea with kids, you know, babies, you're thinking about safety, but we are seeing some anxieties emerge. You know, we've been in some pretty rough conditions, and we're dealing with the boat. We're trying to stay calm, keep things comfortable. But I can't say that they totally enjoy it. But we're having lots of good discussions with them about, you know, what they can do to help ease their anxieties, their stress, and it in turn is helping us as well. So I think these big decisions, it's always a big payoff. I'm just waiting to sit on that beach in the Caribbean all winter and enjoy myself. But starting easy, like every time that we get back to the boat, we try and do a really easy passage. Calm weather, no one's racing, we're not trying to, you know, stress anyone out. So we like to kind of ease them back into it and really, really pick those calm weather windows. Our first passage this year in Greece did not go as planned. So, you know, kids feel seasick, adults can feel seasick, and it is a bit of a management game. I made the wrong call on this one, where as soon as they started feeling a little green, I gave them both some Pedialyte. And I actually should have called this Sunshine and Stains, because it was everywhere.
Yeah, so this was me when my brother and my parents took us out of school, and I was in grade 11, my brother was in grade 8. And it's resonated with our family ever since. You know, I think about all the things that we've done over the years, and we still talk about this trip when I was 15 years old like it was yesterday. And there's a lot of things that have happened between them, but that's still kind of our common bond within our family. And now we're doing it with our kids, and we sailed to the South Pacific pre-kids, and I can't wait to get the boys back to the South Pacific just to experience what we experienced. It's magical. It's hard, it's not easy, but it is absolutely a magical experience.
Yeah, and age is just a number. I feel like there's no perfect age to go cruising. Maybe really, really young is a little bit harder when you're going through the things with kids that are really, really hard. But I would say if you're not already out there with your kids, then get out there as soon as you can. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Cruising while pregnant, as mentioned previously, I guess this was 2023 in the Bahamas at Nippers. We thought it would be a good idea. Found out I was pregnant in January, and we crossed over in like the third week of February. Luckily, I had a pretty easy pregnancy in the beginning. Everyone told me, oh, you're doing great, first trimester. Second trimester is even better. It's the honeymoon phase of pregnancy. It's all a lie.
It was terrible.
It was so bad, so bad. So don't let yourself get like tricked into thinking it's going to be easy, because it's probably not. Eventually it won't be. But before I got pregnant, let's take it back a step. We had been cruising the previous 2 winters in the Bahamas, and we got tricked into thinking having kids was a good idea. Therese, can you raise your hand?
The culprit.
Therese on Vinyasa has the cutest daughter, Millie Breeze, and totally tricked us into thinking it was a great idea. But in all seriousness, it really, I think Millie is the cause of many pregnancies in the Bahamas, which is great. It just grows our group a little bit. This is actually a picture of Cody, Millie's dad, and you can't see, but Millie's down here sleeping in the dinghy. She took a lot of dinghy naps, and that tricked us into believing that babies will sleep anywhere.
Also a lie.
Some babies will sleep anywhere. I don't have a picture from last night, but it was proof.
Only in the dinghy or in other places, never in bed.
But more importantly, your baby might sleep anywhere, but as a parent, you will never sleep again for the rest of your life. So just keep that in mind if you're trying. Let me stand over here a little bit. Let's talk about cruising grounds. So when we found out we were pregnant and decided that we were still going to go to the Bahamas, it was really important to us to stay somewhere that was kind of close enough to civilization that we could fly back home if there was an emergency. If you've been pregnant, you know that you have a lot of doctor's appointments, and if you do choose to go to all of them, you're going to spend a lot of money on plane tickets to get back to the States if that's where you're headed. So we wanted to be somewhere near airports, so we chose to stay in the Abacos. We also wanted to be somewhere that we were close to better than the average provisions. We love the Exumas, but as you guys know, the stores down there are few and far between and very small. In the Abacos and Marsh Harbor, you have a really nice grocery store pharmacy, so you can get, if you're craving pickles or peanut butter.
So she used to love pickles. I brought 8 jars of pickles. She gets pregnant, she doesn't like pickles anymore. So now I've been carrying around 8 jars of pickles. Slowing the boat.
Weighing the boat down. So that was important to us. Another reason why we chose to stay in the Abacos, so we were close to the grocery stores. And also buddy boating. We just really wanted to make sure that we were close to friends, close to other families, or just cruising buddies, so that we could have support if we needed it, because on occasion, Alex truly was single-handing. I was also working remotely full time, so on most occasions he was single-handed already because of that.
Also, one reason we chose the Bahamas or the Abacos was just because we'd been there so many times. That's where I grew up cruising with my family as a kid, and then we'd spent the previous two cruising seasons we'd spent there. So we knew a lot of the hidey holes, you know, when those cold fronts start blowing through. So we try to keep it conservative in terms of our decisions, destinations, and so that's just one thing to one stress factor to eliminate. So I would recommend starting small, starting conservative.
When you're pregnant, again, you're not gonna have all the luxuries that you might have in a first world country, so I recommend just bringing anything and everything that's gonna make you comfortable. Some of my favorite things are shown here. The foot bath that my husband made me was my perfect day in the spa for those swollen feet, and making sure that you have vitamins. The B6 is really good for motion sickness or seasickness or morning sickness. So if you have kids or if you yourself are suffering from motion sickness, you should look into taking that 3 times a day. Ginger snacks, compression socks. Again, in the Abacos, I could just chill at the pool if I didn't feel like lugging my belly down to the beach. That was nice.
Also for the seasickness stuff, so try them before you go out. Like in a calm harbor, take them, see what the side effects are going to be. Because a lot of times you do have adverse side effects, and a lot of people will take it right before they're going offshore. So now you're offshore, you're having adverse side effects, and you're seasick. So try it before you get out there.
Also, things of comfort. We had this nice blow up, one of those like air sack bags, chilling on the beach. You can't really tell so much, but I am pregnant in this picture, and I did shoot my first lobster. It took about 15 tries. I felt really bad for this guy, but we got him. So you can still get out there, you can still do things. Got reamed out on a Facebook mom group for this, because it can be dangerous to dive deep when you're pregnant, so be careful. I didn't know that. It was like 10 feet. It was not an issue. I can't hold my breath that long. But I definitely got reamed out for that one. So safety to consider if you are a diver, if you haven't looked into it, if you're gonna get pregnant. So we came back to the States. We had Isla. She was born in September. And then I had 3 months maternity leave, went back to work in December, about a week before Christmas, and first day back, immediately got laid off from my job. So financial breadwinner of the family, no longer has insurance or a paycheck, and we were planning on going RVing for the winter while I was working, because it was going to be a little bit easier logistically than cruising with a newborn. But we decided, since now neither of us have jobs, we'll just go back to the Bahamas, because it's cheaper to sail than to RV. Air is free, gas is not. So just to talk to you about our experience cruising with Isla, we got to the Bahamas in March, so she turned 6 months when we got there. And the biggest thing again was picking our cruising ground. We again chose to go back to the Abacos because it was extremely familiar. It was close to the airport, it was close to the grocery stores. If we needed to get back, we could rather quickly. And most of all of our friends were there. So as you can see, lots of babies and kids in these pictures. We tend to hang out with people that have pretty cool kids. So we continue to do the things we love, go to the beach, go on dinghy floats through the harbor, go boating, power boating, etc. Lots of time at the playground for the older ones, because you need to wear their butts out. Some advice when you're cruising with kids is to do whatever you can to get some me time or some us time, which is why it was really important for us to hang out with large groups of friends, because it's amazing the number of people that'll just be like, hey, I'll watch your kid if you guys want to go to dinner.
Yeah, it absolutely takes a village. It was like we would show up, and I mean the kids, once they're all together, they just kind of entertain and run around, have fun. So they're kind of entertained. Everybody can kind of step back, but it's also such a great community with the parents. Everybody's watching out. I mean the term "it takes a village" is truly applicable here.
And when you're not with groups of people, so unlucky for us, we got there in March, and then a couple short weeks later, basically all of our friends left us. Luckily, we did meet some new people using the Sea People app. If you guys haven't been to that booth, it's right around the corner. You need to check it out. And thank God for the app, because literally all of our friends left in a matter of weeks because they had been there since probably December or January. So then we were truly alone. And the best thing that my husband does is gets us off the boat, because we have a 34-foot sailboat that he bought when he was a single man, not thinking about a family or a wife.
It got really small really quick.
So when the boat's feeling even smaller, because now you have an extra stowaway, the biggest thing you can do is just get off the boat. We did a lot of just exploring in the dinghy, going to beaches, going to the pool, going to the aquarium when we were back stateside, trying to get up the ICW, and trying to track down friends with more babies. This is an epic picture. This is like one of my favorite nights ever from our trip last year, or this past season. We actually convinced all the guys in the friend group to take all the children, to take all the babies, and leave the women the F alone for a few hours. And they did it, and no one died. I don't even think they cried too much. I'm talking about the guys. I think that they did okay. But it was amazing. We had a nice little spa night on our friend's boat, and I'm not going to show the picture, but we all dyed our eyebrows. Really, really dark shades that didn't match the rest of her hair. Oh yeah, that's our boat behind the power boat. But yeah, it's so great to be with other families so that you can kind of share the load and actually get some you time in. The boys also had a night out, which we won't discuss. And this is it. This is just us snuggling in our very, very, very small V berth. So you don't need a catamaran to go cruising, but it does make it easier.
It's on the list. We're upgrading.
So yeah, biggest advice is just get out there, do it. Don't let anyone make an excuse for you. It's totally worth it, and you can always come back to land. So thank you.
Cool. We have 15 minutes for Q&A. I was trying to think if there's... Therese, do you want to come up and maybe if there are any applicable questions for you as another person I just see that I know has kids aboard? I've got kids aboard too, but I'll leave it maybe to you guys. All right, cool. First question.
Yeah, so I've heard a lot of amazing, thank you, a lot of amazing experiences and stuff. So my question, I have a 10-year-old. He wasn't born into the sailing world, and he hadn't grown up in the sailing world. What would the transition, this is for anyone that has children, what would the transition be like for someone like him to go from a school environment to a boat environment?
Good question. What's your name?
Keshma.
Keshma?
You go first.
I mean, I would say that when you get immersed into the cruising world, there's going to be a lot of firsts for things that you're going to figure out. If you get seasickness, you're going to figure out living in a small space. Those are things that you would deal with and kids are going to deal with. My big thing is that I just always tell people kids are adaptable. They figure it out, and it's not always going to be easy. I know when I was younger and my brother and I got taken out of school, I was in grade 11. I mean, I was a bratty teenager. And my parents said, no, we're doing this, and they just dragged us along. For the first couple of weeks, I hated it. I was like, why are we doing this? This is the stupidest thing ever. And then you get over that hump, and you start meeting some people, you start doing some cool experiences, and the rest is history.
And how was the learning from being in school to being on boat?
You mean the education?
Education.
Well, so I was in grade 11, which is a provincially examinable year for us in Canada, and I had 8 courses. I only finished 5, but I came into grade 12. I was able to make up what I didn't do. My brother was in grade 8, which was not a provincially examinable year. He did probably 2 out of his 8 courses. He was surfing and doing all the fun things while I was stuck on the boat, trying to do school. And he rolled into grade 9 and he didn't miss a beat. So.
Thank you.
And it's changed a lot. I mean, now with Starlink and the access to the education, all of the kids that we've been hanging out with that are new to it and in, grades and doing online schooling or with their parents, they're all doing really well and they take it very seriously. So mornings is school. And you do the school in the mornings and then you get to do the fun things in the afternoon.
Cool.
I appreciate the insight. Thank you.
Yes. Anybody else? All right, I'm going to start asking questions. Yeah, good.
Can you talk about safety? We have 3, 6, 8, and 11, and we're doing charters. We're not yet full time, but just safety standpoint on really man overboard. Are you using any of the gears and gadgets, and just how you're thinking about that?
So if you couldn't hear that question, he has a 3, 6, and 8-year-old, and he wants to know about safety on board, and also if any technology like thinking you're talking about like personal AIS and stuff like that's being used. So yeah. Therese has a 3-year-old that is mobile and constantly trying to throw herself off the boat, so we'll start there.
Yeah, our daughter's almost 4 now. We had her on board from 4 months, and we started off on a boat that had like a swim platform in the back, so it was like a free runway to the water. So we downgraded to an older boat with a center cockpit. So that's been a huge help. But no, just generally teaching her about the dangers and the fun part of the water, teaching her how to be in the water. This most for us now is just water needs to be something she's comfortable with, and something she enjoys, but also respects highly. So safety equipment, obviously life jackets every time. Like she reminds us now. The other day we actually were going to her neighbor's boat, just a few feet in the harbor, and we forgot her life jacket. She's like, "Mom, my life jacket," So she knows now that what's important when, and I think just informing and constantly reminding about staying within the boundaries that you set and set them early.
Yeah, super, super strict rules. Like our boys were not allowed out or into the cockpit without putting on their boat coat, is what we call it. And now that they can swim, I mean, once they can swim, you can be a little more relaxed. But we've been in many places with strong currents. So even though they can jump in the water and they can swim around the boat, they cannot go in the water without an adult. It's just a big no. Someone has to be in the water with them.
So, piggybacking off of safety for the kids, I think you also need to reconsider safety for yourself as well. So, when we were doing the longer passage offshore, so Taylor was down below all the time with Isla, so I was single-handed all the time. And in the past, I would be pretty relaxed about wearing my life jacket at night, clipping in, and it's just, you just have to do it, I mean, nothing's worse than looking out. So, I would say, for sure, ramp up the safety for you and your wife as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point Alex made, because you lose a crew member, whether you're each trading off the duties or not. One person's not on deck. Everybody has a different risk threshold, right? There are people that are great swimmers, and as adults, they never get on and get in their own cockpit without a safety harness on. And there are people that don't even have a safety inflatable harness. They've got life jackets down in their boat, but they're just for emergencies. But being within your comfort zone, if you're the kind of person that has the personal AISs and that kind of stuff, and that's what keeps you happy and keeps you feeling like you're in your comfort zone, then that's especially what you do for your kids. And keeping all that kind of the way you typically operate yourself too.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that we've just switched life jackets, so they've been in kind of like a standard kids one from West Marine, But now that we've kind of been offshore with them, but now we realize it's more about like having a harness is what really matters, like keep them on the boat. So we just got the Spinlock Cento, which are, it's like a kid's inflatable. So I hadn't actually seen those before, but they have like the real attachment point to clip in. So now they can do the same clip in stuff that we do, and they think that they're really cool. So.
All right. Well, there we go.
I'm going to be going cruising in the Caribbean with my grandchildren, ages 6, 2, and 2. How do you keep them entertained when you're underway?
Going cruising with grandkids, 6, 2, and 2. So you own the boat? Or you're doing a charter boat? Okay. So you don't have a bunch of stuff on the boat already, obviously, because Okay, so they are basics that should get packed in a duffel bag and make it there, number one. And then keeping them entertained, too.
Lego. Yeah, I mean, for the older one, it's all Lego. Lego is everything. But the little twins, I mean, they can play with some scrunched up paper and be happy. You know, the attention span is so short that we just had that, if you saw the picture earlier, where we just had the area, and they just rolled around in a whole bunch of things that we found on the boat, spoons and cups, and you just keep adding to the mix.
Yeah, and I think for our daughter, her biggest thing is just that one of us is there. She doesn't really care about what we're doing as long as we're there playing with her. So she can, sit and watch her screen and be fine, and we have a little screen for her to watch a movie, but she would rather sit with us and play or sing or do something, dance, whatever. And Legos now is a big thing. She's starting a little older now, and I love Legos, so I enjoy it. So, find things that are not too strainful to do over a long period of time.
I would recommend doing some research, kind of the islands where you're going to be, and maybe plan some off-the-boat excursions. Being on the boat all the time, there's only so much that you can do, and so much you can do to keep them entertained. But if you can get them on a beach, just let them go crazy, run around, play in the water. I think that's going to help your sanity out.
Yeah, and I only got onto this last year, but like if your local library has an online program, in Canada there's an app called Libby, and now I just get all my books online because you cannot bring enough books, even for a week for the kids. And that's been awesome. We've kind of reduced screen time, so we watch like a movie once a week, because I feel like, especially offshore, it can be a bit of a slippery slope with kids, and we saw that happen early days, and we said, you know what, we're actually not going to do that. So now we use the iPad for the books, and it's great.
Where are you doing the charter? Yeah, so the water's warm in BVI. So get the the inflatable for the 2-year-olds if they're not swimmers yet. Something to where they're just really, really comfortable in the water. Even if it's like they make these really cool donuts that the kids sit in. They're more for babies.
Yep.
But the 2-year-old will stay in the water while you're in the water forever if they're in that little fun thing to kind of float into or whatever. So anything that deflates, you can pack in your bag and keep them in the water as much as possible since BVI water is important. All right, one more.
In regards to schooling, we have an 8-year-old, and what resources are out there for schooling on the boat as far as that goes?
I think there's so many now. It's actually hard to choose. So when I was looking at a program for our boys, I just reached out to another sailor who had gone through a few. She'd been cruising with her 3 boys, and she said, you know what, we tried like the Kuman or a few of them, and ended up on this one that's called Moving Beyond the Page. And it's a curriculum that I bought, but it's all like literature based, which has kept them more engaged with it. But I think like if you go on Facebook and go on like the Sailing with Kids, you ask that question, you're probably going to get handed a list of like 20 different possible programs. And we're also in Canada, they will actually give us the curriculum. I don't know if they do that here, but so starting in grade 1, we're going to get the curriculum from our local school board.
Yeah, I think it depends on how long you're going for too, right? Like, it's really easy if you're only going for a couple months to fall into this, like, oh, I'll just get an app that calls itself educational, and like they tap on really flashy things that have letters, and you're like, oh, okay. I feel like they're definitely getting an education, but even a 2-month, right, a very short seasonal cruise, getting them into like a curriculum that kind of takes them all the way through and keeps them on pace is pretty important. That was a quickie. One more. Anybody?
I'm just gonna offer Alex to add to that. So when Alex cruised when he was younger, one thing that he and his parents had told me was that this was, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, was that they were all homeschooling their kids, right? So one parent would like take a subject or take a day and teach like multiple kids. So if you do find other cruising families and stuff, and you can get into the same curriculum close to the same age range, I think that's a great option, because his dad would be like, I don't want to do science, but I'll rock history type of thing, and then another parent would cover science or math or whatever. And I thought that was pretty neat, because then you give them some variety with who's instructing them too.
And one of the things, so when we were cruising, we were buddy boating with both of the other kids that were in similar homeschool programs that my brother and I were in. So one thing my parents did was we would flip-flop. So the other boat parents would actually teach us. Realistically, I mean, what kids listen to their parents all the time. So it gave my parents a break, it gave us a break, switched things up, and kept things fresh.
Well said.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for being here.